Georgia's a huge favorite and should be, and I think they're a decidedly better team than Kentucky. And I don't necessarily always buy into we're mad because we just lost and we're going to turn around and take it out on somebody. I think that happens certainly, but I don't know what the mindset of these players are and how that's going to play out once the other team's motivated too. I just think that they're better than Kentucky, and Kentucky's improved. They're 7-3 right now. They still have just the one game left in the SEC to finish off a good SEC campaign. If they can pull off this win, they'll get into the rankings, and they've got a last game against Louisville. They could have a really nice season. Even with a loss to Georgia, they could finish 8-4. So Kentucky's much improved. They're at a position where they're taking out most of the teams below them. They beat South Carolina. That's probably their best win this season on the road, but they're beating up the likes of Mizzou and Vanderbilt and those teams. They got knocked around pretty good in Starkville, Mississippi a few weeks back. So Kentucky's not a great team. Georgia's much better. They should be in good shape this Saturday if they come out and play the way they're capable, regardless of the motivation factors.
I have to agree completely. Kentucky's a run-based team, and they're going to run and will try to run until they absolutely cannot. They're an impressive run team. You have Benny Snell Jr. He's had 6 games for over 100 yards, 205 carries. He's already over 1,000 yards and has 15 touchdowns on the year. And they like to do the Wildcat, and he takes predominantly a lot of snaps. And talking to Kirby today at his press conference, he was talking about how there was times during last season's game that the running back took almost every single snap in the drive, and so that is something that he's pushing for his defense to really hone on. But you can't give up on Steven Johnson either, because he can use his legs as well, and he can also use his arm. He's got 79 carries for 348 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground, and then he's thrown for 1,800 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He's got a 62.76 completion rate, which is actually better than Jake Fromm's right now. So they have weapons, and it's not just Snell Jr. They also have Garrett Johnson, who has 42 catches and 464 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then C.J. Conrad, who has 15 catches and 279 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, if Georgia's defense can contain them, I think that they will have a hard time moving the ball and scoring. Georgia has held every SEC East opponent except for Florida for under 100 yards on the ground, and I think that's going to happen again, especially after they just kind of got ran over last week against Auburn. I have a feeling that Trey Scott and Mel Tucker and Kirby Smart are all hounding fix the run defense and then execute as well in the passing schemes of things for the defense. Kentucky actually ranks number 9 in rush offense. They only average like 168 yards a game, and they rank number 10 in the SEC in passing offense. So Georgia's got a prime opportunity to really hone in on some sacks, cause some turnovers, and really get some confidence back after that tough loss. And it's also going to be a chance for Jake Fromm to really hone in on something other than handing the ball off. Granted, Georgia's going to ground and pound all day long. If they can get the run to work, that's great. That's fine. That's how Georgia's been winning ball games. But I've said it before, you're going to have to throw in the SEC to win in the SEC. Granted, Jake Fromm threw 29 passes against Auburn, but in the scheme of things, when you look at the game as a whole, it didn't ever really feel like he threw that much. So I think it's going to be a good opportunity to let Jake Fromm air it out on a last-place pass defense who gives up over 280 yards a game in the air. And so I think Georgia should have a little fun with this game and test some things out. I mean, all season long, we've heard about Jake Fromm not playing as a freshman. Well, let's see him throw like a veteran. Let's see him execute a game plan that has both passing and rushing in it like a veteran, because you want to sit there and say that he doesn't play like a true freshman, but yet you are limiting him on what kind of pass plays that he's doing. I think Georgia's defense is going to really just take control of this game and help the offense out like they have in a few games past. I think they're going to get back to the basics of what they've always been doing all season and show the nation that last week was just kind of like a mishap.
Yeah, Benny Snell, you mentioned him. A lot of people are going to get to see him for the first time. He's run the ball more than anybody in the SEC. He's got a few more carries than Kerryon Johnson. He's just a few yards behind in the rushing championship race in the SEC, and he and Johnson are tied for the SEC lead with 15 touchdowns. But Kentucky has only faced one ranked team this year, and that's a game that they got blasted at Mississippi State. It was close at half, and they got annihilated in the second half in Starkville, 45-7. And I don't even think Mississippi State was ranked at the time. And so Kentucky is actually facing their first ranked opponent of the season at kickoff. And this being a CBS game at 3:30 Eastern time, this is the first time a lot of people are going to get to see, as I mentioned, Steven Johnson, who you mentioned has had a nice season, and in particular, Benny Snell, a guy that's had 6 100-yard rushing games and 3 consecutive huge games against the likes of Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt, but nothing close to what the Georgia defense has done this year. So that'll be an interesting test to see if Kentucky can raise its game and run the ball like they like to do. They like Georgia in terms of run-pass ratio, are mirror images of each other. Kentucky, they would like to throw it 17 or 18 times, something in that range, and let their quarterback, Steven Johnson, run it quite a bit, and let Benny Snell run it 25 to 30 times. That's been the formula for their success. And, of course, that's what Georgia's done on their side in winning. Let's see, what do they have? 9 games, 9-1 at this point with 2 games left.
If Georgia just had Nick Chubb, I believe that his numbers would probably be similar to Snell's. But the fact that Georgia has 5 running backs that they can just pick and choose from anytime that they need to, I think is what stands this team out above Kentucky. Like you said, they predominantly depend on Johnson and Snell. So it's going to be, battle of the depth. Who has the deeper team? And, I mean, at running back, Georgia definitely does. So I think that's going to be a deciding factor. Like I said, ground and pound until it doesn't work. But I think Georgia has too many weapons on the passing side. You have Isaac Nauta that has hardly been thrown to this season. You also have Javon Wims, who you saw against Auburn just go up and grab balls, and then also Terry Godwin. I mean, Georgia has so many weapons on the offense. Maybe give the backs a break, but at the same time, like, I would love to see Nick Chubb move further up into the SEC all-time rushing records and just really, end his career at Georgia on a high note. And I think that's what's going to happen on Saturday is, it's senior night, it's senior day, senior night. And I think this team's going to give the seniors what they want, and Georgia's going to win at home or go undefeated at home for the first time since 2012. And first time since the split of the East and West in the SEC, go undefeated and beating every single SEC East team. The last time Georgia beat Tennessee, Vandy, and Florida in the same year was 2012. So it's been a while since Georgia's really put together a complete season. So if they go in and beat Kentucky on Saturday, it will be the icing on the cake for sure, because it's just something that no other Georgia team has done, is beat South Carolina, Tennessee, Vandy, Florida, and Kentucky, all, and you got to include Missouri now, all in the same season. So despite losing, it's still a special season for sure, just in that sense as well.